Okay, so here we have the SL Mark III. This is the 49 key version, but it does come in a 61 key. So fundamentally, it is a MIDI control keyboard, which can work with any DAW that will accept USB MIDI. Obviously, it does have the MIDI outputs as well. One of the things that makes it really stand out to many other units on the market is the fact that it has an 8-track sequencer built into it per channel. So these 8 tracks can basically be assigned to pretty much anywhere you want. We offer dual CV gate output, so we do have a bit of connection here to the Eurorack system. It also has dual MIDI outputs as well. So for example, we're just clocking this analog rhythm at the moment and also controlling our Big Sky pedal here as well. I will add that because we give away 64 templates within the firmware, basically you can easily browse between any of the sort of templates that are already made for you. So there is a specific Electron one for things like the analog rhythm, Octatrack 2, the Big Sky and so on. So again, but if you want to kind of create your own map, it doesn't use AutoMap. It actually uses our component software, which is super simple to use. So as well as having a standalone 8-track sequencer built in, which can be assigned to, either CV gate, MIDI output, or via USB back into your DAW, if you want to take a little bit more control of the DAW, by press in control, it will actually work seamlessly with Ableton as an example here. So it does ship with Ableton LE, but now we can easily take control of the devices from this particular screen. So that's a really, really useful feature. Again, it's already mapped for you, but if you are maybe jumping to something that isn't mapped for you, for example, I don't know, let's look at something like this ARP thing here. You can easily assign it. So those people that are kind of, oh, will it work with AutoMap? No need to do that. When you go into it, all you need to do is press configure. And when you want to actually start mapping it, you can easily then click the elements of that particular plugin that you want to control. Now notice when I've done that, it actually does it in the order that you want. So it's super easy to be able to map any device that isn't mapped already for you. But as I said, because it works seamlessly with Ableton, the script works really well. We've got one for Logic and Reason coming as well. But as I said, it will work with Huey devices as well as the Mackie control. So really, really cool way of being able to work with that. So again, a lot of the work's done for you when you're using Ableton. So if I just select that drum kit, let's start working with this now. So if I come back to my sequencer page, I select channel 1 because this is where my drums are. So anyone familiar with our circuit devices and circuit monostation, this will give you that very, very similar kind of sequencing workflow. So for example, if I now want to clear this pattern just to start afresh, I use the clear button and select it. And if I want to see the steps, just press the steps button. So now if I press play on my transport, here we have our kind of playhead, if you like, going through the 16 steps. Now, obviously, like you can on circuit, you can control the behavior of that. So you might want to have it kind of, I don't know, going in different directions, forward, backward, etc., all different sync rates as well. So maybe you're playing a kind of a chord or something. It's pretty worth mentioning that these pads are polyphonic as well. So you can record basically up to 8 notes on that each individual step, so which is really helpful when you're wanting layering some drum sounds, but also if you are sort of having quite intricate chords, etc. in your sequence, that's easily controllable. But we'll come back to that. So we'll just select a quick kick pattern. So I've selected on the keys the kick, and I've just then plotted that onto my grid. Now I can use the clear function again, or the duplicate function, like you might have been familiar with on circuit and circuit monostation, but it depends on how you want to play. You can also, if you want, play in live as well using the grids, so that's quite useful as well if someone wants to be more of a sort of finger drummer. But for the sake of this, we're just going to keep it super light and easy. So what I did there, select the snare and then select the steps that I want to add the snare onto. So again, now if I wanted to maybe add the hat, I can maybe record the hat in. So I'll just hit record on the transport. Now, if I go back to my patterns, I can now duplicate these over maybe. So if I duplicate the pattern over, I could then have like a little different fill or something on there. So for example, let's record a bit more of a snare on the back end of that. So now, because it has that really amazing circuit workflow, we can easily then chain the patterns together. So now I'll play pattern 1, then pattern 2. And it will loop round and round as needed. Now you can obviously do that from sort of 1 to 8, for example, but for the sake of this short video, we'll just select 1 and 2. Next up, I've selected MIDI part 2. And again, now this is our kind of chord sound. Now, notice I wasn't actually playing those exact notes, so it's quite a good option to mention this now. We've got a different scale. Because scales are available on the unit, all I do is to activate them in the same way I activate the sequencer, the arpeggiator, which we'll come to. You just press shift and then sequencer and scales. So I've turned the scales on, and now I've told it that I want it to be C natural minor. But if I wanted to, I could probably adjust that to be major scale and so on. Notice how the LEDs are changing to represent that scale. That's really, really useful for when you're sort of working, and especially someone like me, it's not necessarily a keys player. There's kind of different ways that the scales will work under scale mode. So for example, snap, if I now play these notes, notice how I play a kind of duff note, if you like, that isn't in that scale. It's jumping it, snapping it to the next available note in the scale. If I now select filter, now it won't play the duff note because it's not in that scale. If I go to display only, I can now play those different notes, but I can still see the scale. So I know that these notes will work in that C minor scale. But if I wanted to do some sort of in-between note, it's not in the scale, but I can still play it. Let's use it again for the sake of argument, just leave it on snap, just because it's nice and easy for sort of just showing a bit of workflow on that. So all good. Okay, so we'll come back to my sequencer. So if I press play again on the transport, there we are. And if I select the second kind of section, what I'll do is I'll record into that second track here my little pattern. So it's kind of still starting to form a track there. So now, for example, if I now select my channel 8, track 8, that's now connected up to the no coast here. So because it's got such a powerful kind of way of working with this, what I might showcase now is the fact that we can easily use the arpeggiator, if we wish, on this particular channel. So all we do is activate the ARP, shift and press ARP, and I'm going to latch that as well. So actually it frees up my hands to doing something else. So now, for example, if we now press play again, so what I was doing there, I've already mapped the modulation output, which is two modulation outputs to go with the dual CV gate outputs. And if I want to record maybe some automation alongside that arpeggiator now, let's do that quite quickly now. Now, I'm not overly impressed with my automation there. So again, super easy to be able to press clear and then move the encoder. Now we've actually wiped the automation from that particular lane, which is really handy again. So you don't have to kind of delete the whole settings to be able to wipe that. So that's really useful. So if I hit play again, there's just a little bit of movement there, which I really like now, so that's great. Okay, so now we've got just a basic pattern running on the analog rhythm now as well. So if I hit play on here, the transport will actually take control of analog rhythm. Now, because the audio is routed through the Big Sky, what I'll also do is record some of the automation via the Big Sky just to show it working. So notice if I adjust the parameters here, it will actually start showing up on the Big Sky as well. So again, being able to sort of really have one central position to be able to make your music from, rather than having to sort of, have hands going everywhere, you can actually use those 8 channels of automation per track to really get to grips with it. Let's go into In Control to go a bit deeper. So if I select In Control now, quite easily you can see that everything's already mapped again. So at the top here, we've got mutes, for example, which can be super handy for a performance. Also, if I use the next bank down, we can do things like record arm as well, which can easily be useful. Now, as you can see, because these are already lit, this is kind of more like our conventional launchpad workflow as well, which is really, really useful when wanting to sort of capture some ideas into the computer. Now, a good way to maybe utilize the 8 tracks, for example, if you've got lots of pieces of hardware or you want to kind of use the sequencers in more soft synths and things like that, you can easily use this way to capture all of your individual performances. So, for example, because I've recorded this kind of chord part and also maybe my piece of audio here would be the drums. I want to recapture those and maybe go into more detail in the MIDI. I can easily then just use these record arms, which I've just selected, and then actually record those into my project as well. That's been a very brief overview of the SL Mark III. For more information about availability and pricing, please do check the link beneath the video, and thanks for watching.